Hello and welcome to Finding Focus. This is a new podcast made by me, Christina Webber. I am a visual artist based in Edinburgh. This essentially aims to be a really informal chat between me and a handful of photographers that I admire, talking a bit about how they kind of found their way into the photography industry and on a particular project that I have asked them to talk about. So the first few episodes are with a photographer and good friend of mine called Zoe Hamill. Zoe was selected for the New Irish Works exhibition in 2019. She's also been involved with the New Photographers Guild at street level. Zoe co-founded Fresh Focus at Stills with myself and Erin Semple, and there's a load of really interesting projects to have a look at on her website, including Map Without Words, Tony's Ponies. That's all at zoehamill.com. This is definitely an experiment at this stage, and due to the current situation, I do not have access to some of the equipment that I would like, but I thought it would be a good opportunity to just get the first few out there anyway, as I think people could use a pint and a chat right now. So please let me know what you think. I really want to make these better and continue to improve, so any support or advice would be great. If you love it, please write a comment. That would mean the world. It's actually taken a surprising amount of time to edit these together. All support would be really, really lovely. Please enjoy. This is Finding Focus. We're going to talk a bit about your current work in progress, which is called Control, if I'm correct.
Mm-hmm.
Would you mind introducing, I'll let you introduce the work, first of all, just a brief, just like a synopsis.
Okay. It is photographs of different horse tack, specifically the bits which go in their mouth, because there's loads of different kinds. They all do slightly different things, and they all have wonderful names that are very, very odd. And the more you think about it, the more the whole thing's quite odd. So that's why I'm photographing them.
Now, this is super interesting because having already talked about your kind of fascination with weird objects and photographing weird objects, this makes like loads more sense to me. Not that it didn't make sense before, but this is obviously a recurring theme.
Yeah, it kind of
is.
is.
In your kind of brain, where you're just fascinated by strange objects and human uses and treatment of strange objects. Do you want to talk a bit about what made you pick these things to photograph, and specifically why you photographed them the way that you have done?
Yes. This is, well, I've always been obsessed with horses. I just have. I don't know where it came from. My whole life, been obsessed with them. Whenever I was really little, I just used to read textbooks about them, and like literal textbooks. As a child, it was like my bedtime stories were like, these are all the bones of a horse. It's like, ooh. Amazing. Like my geographical knowledge is mostly horse breeds because I know where they come from. And I don't know why. Like, never had one. I didn't know anybody who had horses. Like, nobody in the family had them. I would just like if we were driving in a car, I'd make my dad stop if we saw a horse and like get out and go and say hello to it. And then I did go riding whenever I was old enough. I would go once a week to a riding school. And I've kind of just always, but as I've grown up and like had a bit of distance from it, and because I stopped for a while because it's really expensive over here, and ridiculously expensive to go horse riding here, I sort of then looked at the relationship people have with horses as quite an odd one. I find it just really basically bizarre that like a big scared prey animal lets us sit on its back and tell it what to do.
Tug around in its mouth.
Do you know what I mean? Like, that's weird. And so I've photographed. I've got a few projects sort of photographing horses and people with horses, and I'll probably do more. But this sort of specifically came about then. I think it was like in a Fresh Focus meeting, because I'd sort of been thinking about photographing them because they are strange objects and I'm interested because they look quite different. But then I don't think I'd realised how odd they look to people who don't have any experience with horses, and how I did not realise how weird the names were until I said them to people who didn't know what they were.
We used to read horse textbooks as a kid, so to you it's probably
It's like quite
totally
normal. I didn't think
language,
that was weird at all. And then as soon as I said some of the names, and people were just like, "What the fuck are you talking about?"
Give us a few names, go on, because
Okay. There's Egg Butt Snaffle. Is one of the
sounds
classics.
like a cartoon character.
That's like that's a very standard. There's also an Egg Butt McGuinness.
Ooh.
Which I know. There's a Norton Perfection, which I'm still looking for. I still want to get one of those to photograph it. There's a Kimblewick. There's a Jointed Rugby Pelham.
I mean, it sounds like a very antiquated, and I can't say that word, but yeah, like it sounds like a very outdated language. Like when we talk about things like, you know, like Google and Snapchat, and like
it's like a weird
like email, and then you've got like
Kimblewick.
The Kimblewick sounds kind of like an old country pub, which I guess makes sense in terms of rural like connections.
Yeah.
So just to establish, you're buying these items new.
Yes, at the minute I am, because I sort of had I thought about, and I'm still maybe not totally decided. If I kind of like something about the new ones that haven't been used, and they're very spotless and they're very shiny and
they almost look like medical.
Flawless, yeah. Well, they're like, most of them are like stainless steel and stuff, so they're like, they're a bit surgical or something. So at the minute I'm photographing those because I like the sort of weird cleanness of them. But I mean, there is also the option to photograph used ones, because obviously they get worn. They get sort of covered in grass, they get a bit rusty, they start to tarnish, so that could be interesting too, like giving hints to that usage of them. So I'm not, but at the minute I'm photographing them brand new, so I'm buying them off eBay.
Just get started.
Very strange searches on eBay, and buying them photographed. Most of them aren't too expensive, although I need to save up to buy a few. And I could probably resell them, but like it's probably more hassle than it's worth, to be honest.
It's just a bit weird that you're reselling a brand new horse bit that's not even been in a horse's mouth.
Never used.
Just looked at it a lot.
It's like when I have I've got a whole box of these horse bits. I'm like, don't have a horse, by the way. Just have these.
So you're photographing these bizarre objects that most people, or a large percentage of people will have no point of reference for. They won't know what they are, what they do, what they mean. You're photographing them in order to draw attention to the strangeness of the actual physical items, but also to make a wider comment about elements of control and power. Is that correct?
Yeah, because I think it's interesting to look at them in isolation. I'm doing that again as well. Like out of their context, and to look at them and then think about what we use them for, because each of them they're all these different weird names and shapes, because they all have a different effect on the horse, so they're used for different things, or to stop different things, to encourage different things. So then it sort of, to me, speaks about that power dynamic between people and horses, and how much of it hinges on very small things, and that this like one method of control really that's used. It's one of several. There are other things that are used to control them, but the idea that this little tiny piece of metal can control a 1-ton animal, I think is interesting, and also that they can be misused as well. A lot of them are quite harsh and can be very harsh on the animal. Not all of them are, but then I'm kind of interested in that as well, like the back and forth. The horse is a big animal, but it's the person that can cause a lot of pain sometimes to them, but also they can work in harmony, and it can be a partnership, quite an equal partnership, and also a horse can kill you quite easily too. Like, they are dangerous animals to be around, and they cause damage to people as much as people cause damage to them. So I'm kind of interested in that, where the power lies in that.
It's quite interesting, as you are a huge fan of horses and like horse keeping. that you are making what could be perceived as quite a critical project about domesticated horses.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things I struggle with as part of it, is that I would like to find some way of showing both sides of it, because I think it's very easy to look at them and think, that's terrible, isn't it awful what people do to horses? And I think that comes from generally people not really understanding. And it's true that people do horrible things to horses and they don't treat them well, and a lot of it is sort of power and control for no, not for no reason, but in an unnatural way. But I also think it's very possible to have a very equal partnership, and there's plenty of, like, at the end of the day, if the horse doesn't want you there, it's going to get rid of you.
Yeah.
Which I think is always the thing to come back to, is like, if it doesn't want you there, you're not going to be there. So it's about not abusing that trust, maybe more than anything else. But yeah, I think I would like to find some way of showing both sides of it, so it doesn't come across as me being completely critical. Because I'm not necessarily, I'm just interested in it, thinking about it, but I don't think I necessarily have a view on one side or the other.
How do you plan to print and present them? That's what I'm kind of wondering. Because I think if you printed them quite large and in a really nice print finish, you are at risk of totally fetishizing this kind of weird control horse bit kinkiness thing.
Yeah.
How do you plan on approaching the presentation of this?
It's another part that I'm torn on, is at the minute I'm trying to decide whether to stick with digital prints, or I kind of like that idea of it being very clean, and with digital I can do a bit more like manipulation of the images and really make it very sort of sterile and clean. Or I'm also like, I do like darkroom prints of them, because then that's sort of feeding into the fetish idea of,
they're
like,
really sexy prints,
but also the idea of the time spent on them, and the
Yeah.
you know, the whole, like, the value that's added.
But is there a problem making these luxurious, really high quality darkroom prints, which is a luxury to make darkroom prints now, to be fair? Is that something, I don't know, is that in keep, like, because I know I've been telling you that you should stick making the film ones, that they're beautiful, that you should sell them to kinky fuckers, but I understand that might not be in keeping with what you actually want to say, because it is kind of reiterating this weird power hierarchy. I don't know, are we just overthinking everything? Are we just too...
I mean, I do, yeah.
Are we too woke?
I'm not sure. It's kind of interesting then to think about it in terms of, because, I mean, something that I hadn't really thought about until more recently, and I think is something that's different in Scotland than it is back home, is the sort of perception of horses, and that the people that go along with it, and the idea of having horses is very much a part of privilege and upper classes, which I get at home, like, that is part of it, but also very ordinary people have horses, and it's not necessarily a part of middle class or upper class life. It can be a part of everybody's life.
It would be really great if you could make these really like premium prints, sell them to all the like privileged horsey people, and then like give the money to like horse shelters.
Yeah.
Like that would be like this weird photographic Robin Hood for the good of the horses.
This is what I do. But then am I commodifying their pain?
Yeah, but in order to buy them treats, I don't know. I mean, yeah, there's never, I don't think, a way to kind of please all moral quandaries, but it's a very interesting thing to consider, especially in the production of the work.
But do you ever look at, like, sometimes whenever I look at photographers' like projects, I'm just like, oh, the money that must have cost, you know? Or like, just I think about it in terms of film. I'm just like, fuck me, can you imagine? That must have been so many rolls of film. That must have been this much money. Like, I can't help it. That's just how it is. So I think you just need to be aware of that, and it doesn't mean you have to do anything about it, but like, don't deny it.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly.
It's part of what you do. So don't lie about it. Don't
just
ignore
consider it.
Yeah.
That's the point.
Like, for these ones, like, if I'm thinking about these images, if I was I would think about them in terms of, right, I'm gonna make it really fucking plush. I'm gonna make it super luxe. They're gonna be expensive. They're gonna be framed with glass. They're gonna be like, you know, but that would be on purpose. It would
be for a
because this is to
specific-
make
yeah.
it. This is what it's about.
Exactly.
Whereas, so whenever I see that sometimes in other projects, I'm like, why does it have to be that expensive? Why does it have to be that luxury?
I think it's because previously or up until now are still existing, but it's just how you
It's just the
expect
norm.
like
Yeah.
art. I'm doing like little inverted commas, like art things to be is that they have to be products of this kind of ridiculous body of resources, and I think that the internet, and I am a big fan of the old internet at the moment, but I think now people are starting to realise they can make stuff on their own terms. They don't need to make really delicious prints behind glass. You can do things, you can exhibit and show and share work now in ways that you couldn't potentially before. I think that's kind of shaking quite a lot of the art world, because it's
And
like,
especially if that's what it's about. That's the thing that gets me. Because think about the project, think about what you're trying to say with it, and then as well as photographing it, think about carrying it through into the presentation. That just makes sense to me. You know.
So what is next for you and your bits? Horse bits.
Horse bits. I do wish they had another name.
Every time I see one of Zoe's bits in the dark room, I'm like, oh, that's a nice one. Horse bits.
Horse bits. I think I would like to. I'm actually thinking I'd like to re-photograph them. Maybe because I kind of had decided I was going to stick with the way they were, but now that I look at them, I'm like, oh, I don't know. Maybe.
How many bits do you have at present?
I think at the minute I've got maybe 5 or 6. So it's not like I could do it. Because I'm not sure if maybe I thought I was there with the visual of how I wanted them to look, and now that I've had a wee bit of time away from it, I'm not sure I totally am. So I might reshoot, and I'd like to need to buy more, shoot some more weird ones. Might be like the old ones again. Maybe I need to try some, see what they look like. The used ones.
I think that could be quite interesting, because for people with absolutely no knowledge of what they're looking at, and if you presented it in a way where there was literally no supporting context for any of these bits, I think seeing a new one and then seeing one that showed signs of use would kind of be, it would both like help and hinder. I think your imagination would just start going wild, which is quite fun to play with people's imagination. I think that would be quite an interesting way to go with it. And I don't think there's any harm in photographing used ones. I mean, I don't know how you source.
Tony has lots of them, so it could be an option. And the other thing I've been thinking about is possibly not pairing them, but having them with something else as well, because as I say, I kind of want this idea of there being the balance of the relationship and there being a give and take.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure what I would pair them with, or what would be alongside, what would be shown alongside them.
People coming to the work without any knowledge of where you're coming from, like horse-wise, it might be an interesting thing to play with.
They might read it differently,
Yeah, because they might just read it as a total criticism of any horsekeeping bodies.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is something to be aware of,
because it's something that definitely I'd like to, there's other stuff to do with horses that I'd quite like to photograph, but something that's been putting me off is other things that I want to photograph, I feel like I have a more definite view on, and I don't necessarily want to photograph it then, because I don't really see the point in making it very one-sided.
Yeah.
So I'd quite like to photograph show ponies and very highly polished, dressage in particular I find really interesting, because it sort of has evolved from, it's like the dancing horses in the Olympics, but it's evolved from moves that were taught for warfare for horses.
Oh, I never knew that. How weird.
Yeah, so it was controls that were taught for warfare.
Why would they dance around in warfare?
But they weren't. It was more like the Spanish riding school is one of the oldest riding schools it's in Vienna. I think that's Spanish. But they do lots of movements above in the air. So they've got one where the horse jumps up and kicks out its back legs, and they teach them how to do that. But it's very proper classical. They're in little uniforms, and it's all very polished and tight and prim.
So, but that was originally to kick people in the head.
Kick people's heads off in war and stuff,
Fair.
or turn around really fast and all this kind of stuff. So that's kind of where dressage is filtered down from. So that's what it has its roots in, is like again like the epitome of control of the horse, and like being able to ask it to do things. So I'd quite like to photograph that, but then I feel like I would inevitably bring my own, like I'm not into that.
Yeah.
Because I think it's too much control.
You wouldn't be impartial.
So I wouldn't be impartial, and I'm not sure if there'd be any point then. Yeah. I don't really want to make a really strong comment on anything. I just want to look at it. But I do think it would be quite interesting, because they do like, even just the way they plait up their manes and tails, and like they oil their hooves, and like.
Well, that would be quite interesting pairing, like close-ups of the weird plaiting and stuff, because it's this kind of extension of grooming yourself by like presenting a groomed animal. You know, it's like this weird status thing. But I guess that might not be. I'm still very much in my brain thinking of the kind of horse girl idea.
Yeah, well, that's
just
where. But that's what that leads into. Like, there is that side of it, that idea of...
But that's not the only side of horse keeping, and I've never really seen another side, so it might
Which
be
I
interesting.
keep forgetting. You know, because for my sort of view of it has always... Like, I think of it as, like, a really good leveler, because a horse will kick you in the face regardless of who you are. Like, it really doesn't matter. You can still... Like, they don't care. Whereas, I can see where... I feel like possibly more over here than home. It's more of a class thing. I could be wrong. It might just be a time thing, because like whenever I was going to riding school, it was like 20 years ago. So
thank you so much for that. That was really interesting.
No worries.
I'm kind of blown away by the fact that dressage comes from fighting. Like, I'm still thinking about all the little prancing, but like with spears and shit.
It's more like muskets and stuff.
Oh yeah, okay.
Swords, probably.
Actually, spears is like a few thousand.
But that would be like, because even that's, if I get totally nerdy, like that's basically where warfare came from, was like the invention of the stirrup. So before they had stirrups, which is like, you know, the bit of your foot was
is
on
that
in
not
the
to
saddle.
stop the horse?
No, that's so before they had those, they would just be riding on, like you wouldn't have those. So whenever they developed stirrups and they could use them for balance, it meant they didn't need both their hands, and it meant they could throw things and they could stick people with swords. Whereas before, when they didn't have that, they couldn't do that.
Maybe like interesting. It would be quite interesting to see pictures of like stirrups and stuff. But then that's also kind of kinky. Have you considered going down the kind of fetish route?
I don't really know how to, or like it's not really
there
my world.
There are chat rooms, Zoe.
Not really my world, so I would feel like almost trying to make it something for like sensationalize it, which I'm very aware of. Like, I'm not doing that on purpose, but also I don't want to ride on that, if you know what I mean. Like, I don't want to.
No pun intended.
I don't want to like. You know, make it super sexy and get people's
attention. But you didn't do that. Other people did that. That's the thing. Like, kind of horse gear and ideas of domestication in that way, where it's about like harnessing, and that wasn't you. No. Like, someone else.
But it's also not really what I'm looking at, so I don't know.
But it kind of entirely is, because it is all about control. It is about power structures, and it's about that being horses. Sexually. No, yours is about horses, but
this is my problem. I'm always like, I'm going to make projects about this, and it's like, it's about people and horses, and I'm like, no, it's about horses.
But calling it control, I think, does kind of open the door to the 50 Shades of Grey kind of demographic, because
that's true.
For the first time, really, in a while, I guess, that kind of what's it called? I don't know the lingo, but like the bondage stuff BDSM. With like the horses and stuff. Yeah, I don't know, whatever. That is all quite prevalent at the moment, and I think when you talk about ideas of control in quite a liberal Western European society, really the only time people think about control now, because they think they're all free and whatever, is in the bedroom. So you are going to inevitably invite some of that by calling anything control. By thinking about power structures, even, you're going to invite people thinking about power.
So I just sound like a total like naive dipshit to be like, no, but it's about the horses. Like, I literally, like, It's not like I'm ignoring it. I'm just not interested in it. Do you know what I mean?
It's just something to be conscious of.
Yeah. Because I think that is something I worry about. Is like people go like, "Oh, kinky." I'm like, no, not really.
But I don't think it's something to be worried about. I think it's something to maybe harness and consider using as a benefit. You know, you've got an audience there, whether you want them or not. They will be into it. Start up a Patreon and make them pay for pictures of bits.
I could like make up like a new name. I could do it under a pseudonym.
Yeah.
Have a pair. Yeah.
Probably pointless to have this promotional podcast talking about the project if you're gonna release it under like
no, I'm not
Phil Banks.
I'm not gonna.
Wait, was Phil Banks the guy in? Is that the name of Uncle Phil in Fresh Prince? I think it is.
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah.
I like that he came to my brain as
that
alias.
was your.
Good old Uncle Phil. Thank you so much for listening. This has been Finding Focus. Thank you so much to Zoe for agreeing to come for a pint with me and talking about your project Control. Thanks also to Lawrence Turner for producing the lovely intro and outro music. And finally, just a really big apology to everyone for having to listen to that terrible audio quality in the pub. As much as I think it was a nice idea to record these in a pub, the sound issues are just way too troubling for me. So yeah, I appreciate everyone bearing with, and don't worry, lesson learned. Look forward to talking to you again across the ether with my next interviewee, who is Erin Semple. See you then.